What's up guys, welcome to this exercisation. Nestor Adriansen here again. Today I have a really quick question for you guys. So what's the difference among previous month, parallel period, and Dateadd in Power BI? Can we get the same results with these three functions? If you had these questions before, this tutorial is definitely for you, my friend. But before we get started, if you are new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss anything. Alright, so now let's get started, guys. For today's tutorial, I have three different points here. The first one, of course, we're going to learn more about period comparisons in Power BI. The second point here, we are going to learn more about these three powerful functions as well. And finally, guys, as always, I have a really nice case where we're going to put everything into practice. So now let's jump to the first point here. Period comparisons in Power BI. 2 points here. The first one, it's often helpful to compare the same metric from current to previous periods. If you are a Power BI developer, you might have seen this before, or maybe you might have done this before, but this is really important. The second point here, it's possible to build period comparison calculations that uses the calculate function. If you are not familiar with the calculate function, I have also a really nice tutorial about this powerful function in Power BI. I'm going to share with you guys the link as well, okay? So this function, the calculate function, along with explicit filtering rules, using a time intelligent function can make this task easier. All right, so please keep this in mind. And now let's go to the next point. Okay, so let's learn more about these three functions. Previous month. As you guys can see, this is the function, right? Previous month. And also there is a column here that it's related, right? So we can reference this column called dates. And this comes from the calendar table. So we will get there, okay? It's really important to have a calendar table. Time intelligent functions work well with a calendar table. Please keep that in mind. So now let's take a look at parallel period. So this function here has three parts: dates, number of intervals, and then interval, right? So dates also comes from a calendar table. So now let's take a look at Dateadd. So the structure here, the syntax is very similar to parallel period. Have three parts here: dates, number of intervals, and then interval. So now let's go to the next point. Case. So let's learn by doing, my friends. So the question that we have here is calculate the premium amount for the current and previous months and then find the percent difference. Okay, so this is a really nice task. So please keep engaged so we will have some fun here. Okay, so now as always, let's jump to Power BI Desktop. All right, so here we are in Power BI Desktop. Before we get started with the solution, I would like to walk you through a couple of things here. The first one, if you remember, it's really important to have a calendar table. Here it is, it's called dates. If you are not familiar with calendar tables, I also have a really nice tutorial about calendar tables. So I want to share with you the link, okay? But it's really important to have a calendar table. It's right there. The second point here is, you might know this, but we need to have a relationship between the calendar table and the fact table. In this case, is the premium table, right? So there is already a relationship. We can double check it if we want. We have right here date, which belongs to the calendar table, and also we have claim date that belongs to the premium table. So there is a relationship there. So it's single here, the cross filter direction. Cardinality is from many to one, and this relationship is active, so we are good to go here. No changes, okay? Let's go back to report. Another important piece of information here before we get started is the following. We have right here a table called DAX measures, and we already have a measure here. So this measure is basically adding every single premium, the sum of every single premium amount, right? Please keep that in mind. So now let's solve the question. So the question was find the current and previous month premium amount, right? And then find the percent difference, right? So that was the question. So what we need to do next is the following. Let's create a couple of measures here. Right click, new measure, and we're gonna start creating our first measure. So we're gonna call this previous month number 1, okay? And then I'll enter here. And of course, we're gonna use this powerful function called calculate. For the expression, we're gonna reference the measure that we already created, which is premium, okay? So now I'll enter again. And right here, we're gonna use the first function, right? We're gonna use the function called previous month. There you go. It's right there. And right here, if you guys remember, we need to reference a column from the calendar table. Check this out. You can do that. I'll enter and let's see what happens. Boom. So now we can also have right here a comma as a thousand separator. It's right there. So now let's drag this measure into this matrix, okay? There you go. All right, it seems like it's working. For February, for example, here we have the current premium amount, and then we also have the previous, right, premium amount, which is this one right here. This is actually January, which is the same one that it's right here. So it means that this is working perfectly. Okay, so we use previous month to solve this question, but now let's use the other two functions, okay? So we're gonna do basically the same thing here, and let's be more efficient here. Let's copy this measure, Control C, and now right click, new measure, and we're gonna paste this code, okay? So, and we're gonna change right here the name of the measure to number 2 here, and also we're gonna make a couple of changes here because we're gonna use the other function. And this function is called Parallelperiod, right? And if you guys remember, this function has 3 parts. The first part is already there. We are referencing a column from the calendar table. This is good, comma, and then number of intervals. Right here, we're gonna use -1. For the interval, here we're gonna use month. Okay, I'll enter. Let's remove this parenthesis and let's approve the change and let's see what happens. Boom. Seems like it's working, guys. We're gonna do the same thing here. Select this measure, comma here. Perfect. And let's drag this into this matrix and let's see what happens. Let's hide this. There you go. Perfect. It seems like it's working perfectly as well, right? We are basically getting the same results, guys. The same results, my friends. So let's keep doing the same thing. Let's go back to DAX measures here and let's copy the code, right? We are not lazy. Remember, we are not lazy. We are trying to be efficient here. Control C, right click, new measure, Control V. Let's change the name of the measure here, right? Number 3. And also we're going to change the name of this function, the filter, right? The filter that this calculate function has. We're going to change this. We're going to use Dateadd. This one right here. And you know what? We don't have to make additional changes here because that's exactly what we're looking for here. We have dates from the calendar table -1, so we care about the previous month, right? And then the interval here is also month. Perfect. And now let's approve this change. Enter. And let's see what happens. We can do the same thing here. Select the measure, right? The new measure. And then comma as a thousand separator. And now let's drag this into the matrix and let's see what happens, guys. Bingo, my friends. Bingo, bingo, bingo. There you go. We are getting the same results. So what do you think so far? So you might say, if we are getting the same results, why are we using these 3 different functions, right? So we will get there. So now, part of the question was to find the difference, right? So the percent difference between the current month and also the previous month. So let's do that real quick. Right click here, new measure. We're gonna call this measure premium year-over-year growth. Enter here, and we're gonna use variables here. If you're not familiar with variables, I also have a tutorial. I'm gonna share with you guys the link. Please stop this video and go to that tutorial if you're not familiar with variables, okay? So now let's name this variable. We're gonna call it premium prior month, okay? Premium prior month. There you go. Equal here. And right here, we're gonna reference any measure that we already built. So we're gonna reference here the premium month number 1, okay? Because basically the results are the same. We can reference premium number 2, premium previous month number 3 as well. But just for this example, we're gonna reference premium previous month number 1. There you go. It's right there. We just finished creating our first variable. So I'll enter again. The next variable here, we're gonna call it premium variance, okay? Perfect. I'll enter. And we're gonna use this function called divide. And right here, the variance, we need to use the divide function, and the numerator should be the difference between the current month and the previous month, right? And right here, we're gonna use two measures. Premium, which is the current premium amount, right? Minus the previous one. And for this particular case, we're gonna use the first variable, which is the premium prior month. Remember, variable, not measure, variable, it's right here. This is an X and Y here icon. So that's how we recognize variables. It's right there. And also remember, this is the numerator. We can add a parenthesis here. This is not required, but I like to add a parenthesis so we can differentiate it. And then denominator, this should be the premium prior month. And we need to reference here the variable as well. Close parenthesis, I'll enter. And now we're gonna use return, right? I'll enter here. We're gonna reference the last variable, which is premium variance right here. Enter and let's see what happens. There you go. So now let's drag this into the matrix and let's see what happens. Boom. There you go, my friends. Now, because this is the difference, right? This is a percentage actually. So what we're gonna do here is add percentage. It's right there. Perfect, my friends. So we can take a look at February if we want, right? So the current month, we have about 4,550. And then for the previous month, we had about 7,000. So if we compare these two periods, right? So we are about 36% below compared to previous month. So now you might have the question, if we are getting the same results with these three functions, which function should I use, right? And that's a fair question. So this is what I have. So the last two functions, I'm talking about the parallel and also Dateadd functions. Those two functions are more flexible. Why? Because those functions have three different parts, right? Let's go back to the measures here that we created. So this is just for the Dateadd. See right here, we have three parts here. It's more flexible. Why? You can jump multiple steps forward or backward. You can say -3, and also you can change right here from month to year to day. So it's more flexible. And the same happens with the other function, which is parallel period. So that's basically the reason, right? So if you want to have more flexibility, so you might want to use the parallel period or Dateadd function. There you go. So now I have a bonus for you guys because I know you love bonuses, right? How about if we want to add right here conditional formatting to the premium year-over-year growth column? So let's do that real quick. Let's select right here the visual, the matrix here, and then let's select right here the measure that belongs to this column, which is premium year-over-year growth. So click right here, conditional formatting, and let's select icons. The next thing that we want to do here is the following. So the icon layout, how about write of data here, and then the icon alignment, we can do middle here, and the style, let's leave as is right now. So now the rules, we only want to have 2 rules here. Let's delete one. So if it's greater than 0, let's add right here number, and it's less than, in this particular case, we're gonna add maximum here, number. So what happens? So this should be green, right? So the other condition here is if the value is greater than minimum, right, number here, and it's less than 0. So what happened here? And this should be number, this should be red. Okay, so let's approve these changes and let's see what happens. Boom! There you go, my friends. Now you have a really nice visual here. Like I said before, in August, for example, so this is about 115% higher. The current premium is higher compared to previous month. So this is green. Perfect. That's how it works, my friends. So now let's go back to our presentation and see if we have more questions to solve, okay? All right, guys, that was it. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If so, as always, please give me a thumbs up, share with your friends, and of course, don't forget to subscribe because you don't want to miss anything. Thank you guys, and see you in my next tutorial.